Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Fantasy Nightcap. Grab a drink, kick back, and relax. I'll be your bartender for the night, Shane, and with me tonight is co-founder of Front Yard Fantasy, host of the Fantasy Football Game Show, and host of the FanDuel Sunday Night Recap, Simon Groeneveld.
What's up, Shane? Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm hyped to be here. It's a long time coming. I feel like that you and I are on a show together like this.
It is. We've been talking about it for months, and I'm glad that we could finally get it to come to fruition. So happy to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So Simon, what's our plan for tonight is we're gonna do our waivers, which is normally the first segment of the Fantasy Nightcap. Now that I've changed it, and we've made a little tweak to how we're gonna discuss those, thanks to Clinic Cap on Twitter. Then our second round is our top shelf and flat performances, and then finally we will do the fantasy beer exchange third. So hope you're ready for a long night of content and just hang in with me. So before we do that, though, we always start with one segment, and that's what are you drinking? So Simon, what are you drinking?
I have a Topo Chico strawberry guava hard seltzer tonight. It was between this and then I have like a sour beer in the fridge, but it went a little bit lighter since it's a Tuesday night. So that's what we're going with.
Okay, I like it. I like it. I also went a bit lighter just because that's all I had in the fridge at my in-laws. And went with a good old Bud Light.
In the bottle. Tastes better
in,
that way.
in the bottle. I agree. Um, and Fox isn't here to judge me for drinking Bud Light anymore. So, which shout out to him. He did make our awesome background for tonight in the thumbnail on YouTube. So, if you guys need graphic requests, hit up my former co-host CarbonFox_FF on Twitter because he is awesome. Okay, so you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so we're going to start off our waivers. And due to the recommendation from Mr. Clinic Cap himself, we are making this a little more beer and alcohol themed. So our first waiver topic is our double IPA. And double IPAs are typically stronger. If you don't drink them, you probably wouldn't know that. But if you do, you're probably like, Shane, shut the hell up. But they're typically your stronger beer. And with that, this is going to be our strongest waiver wire person that we want to go spend the most money on. So, Simon, as the guest, I'm going to let you hop in there first.
Absolutely. My double IPA waiver wire pickup for this week is Kadarius Toney, wide receiver for the New York Giants. At first, whenever Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton went down, I thought his increased workload was only a stopgap while they wait for their 1 and 2 to come back. But he has shown enough on that field that I think he has carved out a permanent share of this Giants offense. He's got a certain spark that those other receivers don't have. Yes, he's raw. Yes, he's going to continue making mistakes out there, but he is electric. He is unbelievably talented, unbelievably athletic, and someone that I think can keep contributing to your fantasy team the rest of season. I do think it's a bit odd to say I'll be spending this much on a wide receiver on the waiver wire. I haven't done that yet this season, and it's not very many times in the season that I will, but I truly think this guy's a star, and he's someone that you can plug into your lineups for the rest of the season.
Very nice. Have we heard if there's going to be any additional discipline for his punch that he threw?
I haven't heard anything from the league. I have heard from him on his tweet coming out and apologizing for it and saying he'll do better. But you know what? Like, okay. I know you're not supposed to punch people in the NFL, but I just loved seeing the fire in him. Know what I mean? Like it's part of the reason. Like I'm like so in. He's got that fire. That you
Which
need
I feel
to be
like that was something that was questioned with him pre-draft, like throughout the draft process. I feel like something that was questioned with him was his fire, his work ethic, and whatnot. And if he's willing to punch someone in the face, it might lean towards maybe the intelligence part of that work ethic, if you will. But having the fire and being really willing to fight for your team that way. Okay, cool. So Jay actually said no discipline, just defined. So I support this, and I'm glad you put him on here because if I had known that, I for sure would have put him on here.
And I'm not worried at all about the like that fire, him not being able to control it. Everything
Yeah.
he said afterwards showed like, I shouldn't have done that. My emotions got the best of me. I was
Okay.
excited in this game environment. So I think he's a smart guy, a talented guy, and you're not gonna have to worry about like consistent issues like that. He's not that kind of player, it seems like.
Okay, good. Good. I don't want to give Giants fans a nightmare, so I'm going to keep my thoughts to myself here. So my double IPA person is Darrell Williams, Darrell Williams. I don't know how the hell you say it. There's so many people with the same name spelled the exact same way or like one letter off, and it's pronounced 17 different ways, and I don't understand it. But Darrell Williams, running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs just announced today that they're putting Clyde Edwards-Helaire on IR, so he's out for at least 3 weeks. Williams, to me, is the clear-cut number 2 in that offense or in that backfield when CEH is there. So, and Jerick McKinnon, I think, only got 4 snaps or 4 touches in the game this past weekend and hasn't done much with it. So I see this as a very large volume increase for Williams. I am especially if I lost CEH or am just a running back needy team, I am throwing what I got at Darrell Williams. I think, I mean, I want to say probably a $30 bid, 30% of your fab will get it done. I've been outbid, maybe because people are listening to this show, or maybe because they know me enough that if you bid just a little bit more than Shane, you're going to get them. So yeah, I think a 30% bid will get you Darrell Williams. If you're extremely running back needy, though, bump that up. Maybe even go 40%.
Yep. Completely agree with that there. I think he's a good pickup. He's not my favorite stopgap running back pickup this week. There is one I like a little bit more. We'll talk about him in a minute, I'm sure. But
I think I got him on the show sheet if it's
yep,
who I'm
you
thinking
do.
about.
I like Darrell Williams, and I think he's a great pickup, and that's right around the range I would be looking to spend 30%.
Yeah. Well, so let's move on then to our regular IPA. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw mine out there. My IPA pick is Devontae Booker.
And
And he's
that's
only rostered in 12% of sleeper 1QB leagues, which I thought was interesting, especially for just the 1QB aspect of that. But yeah, so I'm going to let you talk about him. Why is he your favorite stopgap running back versus Darrell?
There's two things. One, I'm more confident in the workload that he's about to get. After Saquon went down, they basically just transitioned to workload fully to Devontae Booker, and he looked decent with it. The other thing is, I think the Giants' offensive line is not as bad as it was last year. It's still getting a bad reputation, but they have overperformed compared to my expectations. I'm just a fan of the workload that he got, and I have slightly more confidence. I know Jerick McKinnon only got 4 snaps, but I'm a little bit concerned that he'll get a little bit more work in that offense. And then there's already rumors about the Chiefs trading for Marlon Mack, other things like that. Like, it's not instilling confidence in Darrell Williams for me. Whereas everything the Giants have done so far since Saquon Barkley's gone down has made me believe in Devontae Booker as just the next man up. Both of these guys are going to be stop back RBs for you. They're not going to be long-term solutions. So I'll take the one that I have more confidence in their workload, even though it's on the worst offense.
And honestly, I battled between these two on who I was going to put where.
Yeah.
And I think it was the deciding factor for me was more so honestly frustration with CEH because I have a ton of shares of CEH that I think the Chiefs maybe like or trust Williams more as the RB1. But CEH, like, I guess they've just invested too much in him, so they're not ready to bench him or whatnot, which it doesn't make sense to me, but that's for a whole nother show. But basically, I think that the Chiefs have given me indication that when Williams steps in, they think the offense will move better or more than it did with CEH potentially. And I just like Booker is just like a journeyman RB at this point in his career. I know he's been with the Giants, I think, for 2 or 3 years now, but he's old. And I don't know if I trust him to stay healthy, especially behind a not as great offensive line, even though they are holding their own. But it was really, really close for these two guys.
I mean, it's gross that we're talking about these names right now
Yeah.
as like viable running back starts. We have to kind of lower our expectations as a whole for the starting running back positions right now in fantasy
Yeah.
leagues, unless you're one of the lucky managers out there with Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones as your top two guys.
Yeah.
Everyone else is pretty much fighting these same battles we are. Do I start Michael Carter? Do I start Darrell Williams? Do I start Devontae Booker?
Yeah.
It's a
Totally.
gross time for running backs.
Yes, it is. And it would just be great if the top guys could just stay healthy or get healthy and stay healthy. But that's another topic also for another day. All right, so who is your IPA bid?
My IPA bid is another running back. He was on a lot of waiver lists last week, but he's still only about 50% rostered in sleeper one quarterback redraft league. So I'm putting him on here again, making sure people know you need to go pick him up. And that is Alex Collins for the Seattle Seahawks. This Chris Carson situation scares the absolute snot out of me. A neck injury, one they say is a long-term neck injury, like you don't even have to put the words long-term. You say neck injury, and I'm concerned for a podcaster, let alone an NFL running back. You know what I mean? Like I would be like, are you okay doing an hour and a half long podcast, Shane, if you told me you had neck issues? But Alex
My
Collins
neck
or
hurts.
Chris Carson's expected to go out there and take on a full workload with a long-term neck injury. I am concerned, and the lack of information around it concerns me even more. And that's the only thing really driving Alex Collins to be rostered. Chris Carson uncertainty means Alex Collins needs to be rostered in every fantasy league.
Yeah. Well, and he looked pretty decent too in the Thursday night game, and the Rams defense ain't no slouch. So
No.
I'm okay with that, especially because you can probably expect low end flex play with maybe a little bit higher end flex play if he gets in the end zone.
Yep.
And you're picking him up off a waiver. So yeah, I love that call. What do you think you'd be willing to bid on Collins to try and get him?
Man, it's really not going to be a lot. Probably like a max of 15% is around where I'm going. If you are RB needy, or if you're the Chris Carson manager, maybe go a little bit harder, but 15% is about what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I would say if you're Chris Carson, if Chris Carson's on your roster, I would maybe go up to like 22%, which would technically put you into the double IPA range, but that's for another. That's you guys don't even know that.
The average comes out to the IPA range.
Yeah, exactly.
The overall average comes out to an IPA guy.
Exactly. So I think that's what I would probably go with for Collins, especially if I'm the Carson manager. All right. So now let's hit the Pilsner. And I'm gonna let you start. Because I feel like it.
We're talking about another wide receiver here for me, and another guy that's a little bit over 50% rostered. There are two guys I'm talking about today that are in the majority of leagues. They're going to be rostered, but about half of you out there, if you go check your waiver wire, they're going to be sitting there. And that is Rondale Moore for me, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. And I don't think you're going to have to spend up if he is on your waiver wire. That means he survived it last week. But when you watch this guy play, again, another just electric wide receiver, a playmaker, fast. He's going to be inconsistent the rest of the season. AJ Green's involved on the outside. He's not going to be a consistent contributor. That's why he's down here in the Pilsner category. But he is the kind of high upside, high variance play that you can plug into your flex spot week in, week out to try to capitalize on a big touchdown. So I like Rondale Moore as a waiver wire add in this range.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I've actually got him in my home league with Jay, and I'm not cutting him because he is so electric. Like he's what I need on that roster right now, and that's someone who's got the potential to boom. If he busts, it might kill my team. But that's due to some other factors. But he's got such high potential with his speed and athleticism to take the top off the defense and score a touchdown every game. So my Pilsner is also a receiver, and he's rostered in about 20% of 1QB redraft leagues on Sleeper, and that's Amon-Ra St. Brown. So
I like that one.
Thank you. The last 2 weeks, the Lions offense has sucked outside of two people, DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So St. Brown, I believe, if I remember correctly, has 7 targets in each of the last 2 games. And Quintez Cephas just went out and is likely done for the season. So what that means to me is Amon-Ra St. Brown just stepped into the wide receiver 1 role. If teams continue to take away TJ Hawkinson like they have the last 3 weeks, which is also killing me, Amon-Ra St. Brown to the sun, because he's the sun god. And you can probably get him off your waivers pretty cheap for 5, 10, maybe 15% if you're feeling real generous and you're a wide receiver needy team that maybe lost Cephas and was using him as a flex play, or has been dealing with the Jarvis Landry injury. I'm just thinking of the guys on my team that are injured. If Calvin Ridley now Ridley's on bye, so we're in bye week territory too, and that's gross. It's flat out gross. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great fill-in, either as a flex or even a wide receiver, because he's been getting the volume right now. So I loved St. Brown before the draft, so I absolutely love St. Brown.
Yeah. I just wanted to instill some confidence in TJ Hawkinson going forward first. I think he is an excellent buy low candidate right now. He is unbelievably talented, and it's going to turn around for him a little bit. But on the Amon-Ra St. Brown side of this, I agree with you. You follow the volume. And when a receiver gets that kind of targets 2 games in a row, you add them to your team. That's just what you got to do. I completely agree with you on that point.
Yeah.
It could be me out on the field getting 7 targets a game, and I'd add myself to a fantasy roster. And I'm a 5'10", 190-pound, zero muscle chicken nugget.
Well, that's basically what Hunter Renfrow is, just adding more muscle.
I'm not convinced. I ran into Mike Williams at a bar in Clemson one time, and I was a little bit inebriated. We were on the Nightcap. I think I can say that. And I walked up to him, and I just said, "Yo, Mike." And he looked down at me, because, he's a tall dude. And I said, "Be real with me. How big is Hunter Renfrow?" And he looked at me. He gave me the full up down in this bar. Paused for a second. He goes, "Man, that dude's smaller than you are." And then walked away. And I walked around the rest of the night feeling like a champ, like feeling like I was on the Clemson football team.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's my Mike Williams story.
I love that. All right. Let's hit the wheat. And this isn't my favorite selections for us from a player standpoint, but this is probably my favorite type of beer on the list. And that is a good old wheat beer. So, who is your wheat beer? And I want you to talk about it, because I like yours a lot more than mine, because mine's really situational.
Well, you know what? I like yours based on the situation we just got presented with. But the player I'm going with, last week I was all about adding Damian Williams 100%, and I still stand by that. But we can't ignore the workload split that happened in that Chicago backfield last week after David Montgomery went down. My wheat beer waiver wire ad is Khalil Herbert, running back for the Chicago Bears. Last week in that Bears offense, after they went down, Khalil Herbert got 18 carries. Damian Williams got 16. Now, Damian Williams did get the targets, 3 of them, but Khalil Herbert was getting the work. They just about split 50-50 in an offense that has shown us they want to rely a little bit on the run game with a rookie quarterback in there. You can't ignore 18 carries if they're going to continue doing that. And he looked pretty good as well. What was his average? He averaged 4.2 yards a carry to Damian Williams, 4 yards a carry. They're not going to suddenly stop because they were around the same efficiency. This is a player you need to be adding, and I think you might be able to get for lower than Damian Williams was acquired last week, because Damian Williams was expected to get the full workload, and now they're showing it's 50-50. He's a guy that's got to be rostered in my mind.
No, I absolutely love that, especially with what you said about how he got the volume. He got 18 carries to Damian's 16 carries. And I think he had 75 yards. And I think Williams had maybe 60. I could be wrong on that. But
it was 75 and 64.
Yeah, so they were really close, like you said, in efficiency. But Herbert still got those 2 extra carries. So I'm definitely going with Herbert. I like that call a lot. And like you said, you can probably get him really cheap, especially if people blew their money on Damian Williams last week.
And the other thing you have to remember is he is a rookie. This
Yeah.
he is a rookie running back who was given that kind of workload in this first game where he was expected to step up. That could increase. Like, you see that with rookies. If they go out there and prove that they can handle it, the coaching staff can put a little bit more confidence in them. So it is not out of
But
the
we
realm of
are
possibilities.
also talking about the Bears coaching staff.
Yeah. You know, we can't talk logic with them at all. But traditionally, if a rookie goes out and shows you something like that, you give them more work the next week, not the same.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but great point.
So my wheat player, it sucks just because it's an Eagles player, and I can't stand the Eagles. Sorry, Eagles fan. But it is Zach Ertz. He's currently rostered in 47% of sleeper 1QB leagues, and the reason that he should honestly probably be higher if you are the Dallas Goedert manager. If not, and maybe you're just streaming tight ends or a tight end needy team, he is almost a must add as well, because now any and all of the volume that was going to the tight end position in Philly is going to go to Ertz at least this week, because Goddard is out due to COVID. That is probably why he is further down into the wheat categories, because he's probably just a 1 week rental. I don't foresee him being a long-term ad unless for some reason he just blows up, and I don't necessarily foresee that happening either, just because Tampa Bay has a really good defense.
I'm a little bit more optimistic about Zach Ertz rest of season, which is surprising to me. Beginning of the year, left for dead. I was refusing to draft him anywhere, even in the last round. I thought he was completely washed and wasn't going to be able to produce for fantasy at all this season. The first 2 games this season, it kind of looked like I was right. I was like, okay, nailed it, 2 targets apiece. But then the last 3 games, even with Dallas Goedert in there, 7 targets, 8 targets, 6 targets, he's involved in this offense. And I think it might have to do with the switch to Justin Fields at quarterback. They're giving that rookie a safety blanket with the tight ends. And
Jalen Hurts.
Sorry, Jalen Hurts. Thank you so much. I apologize for that. We were just talking Bears and it was stuck in my head. Sorry. I don't know why that just happened. Excuse my unbelievable brain fart, everyone. One too many Topo Chico seltzers. But Zach Ertz is involved in this offense regardless of Dallas Goedert being there. Now, with Dallas Goedert out, he's a must play for this following week if Dallas Goedert isn't playing. And I think with the grossness of the tight end landscape, he is startable for – he's startable. Like, tight end is gross. I mean, 7 targets is – I mean, what else do you want from like a tight end? Know what I mean? A tight end getting 7 targets, that's a startable tight end.
Yeah, totally.
Which is gross to say about Zach Ertz, but that's the state of the tight end landscape.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you there.
Hopefully you grabbed a Dawson Knox or a Dalton Schultz on waivers earlier this season, so you're not even having to worry about this. But if you didn't, Zach Ertz is a guy you can pick up.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Now on to the logger. All right. I'm going to hit you with mine first. This person's rostered in 5% of 1QB leagues. He blew up last week. Blew up. Best game potentially of his career, and it's David Njoku. Now, the reason that he is down here in this area is because A, the Browns are a run-first offense. B, he's like 6th on the pecking order. At least in my mind, he's 6th on the pecking order. Now, he could have another game like this, and he's going to start climbing up there. But, I mean, they've got Odell, who hasn't looked great so far. They've got Donovan Peoples-Jones. They've got Kareem Hunt out of the backfield. They've got Austin Hooper. They've got Anthony Schwartz. I think I said DPJ, but I can't remember. And then it's David Njoku. And so there's just so many mouths to feed in that offense that I don't know if he's going to be a reliable target for you from week to week. But he's worth stashing now in case he does continue to produce like he did, even half of what he did last week from week to week, because like we just said, that tight end landscape is ugly.
Yeah.
So that is why I'd be willing to throw a dart at David Njoku and maybe bid $5 max.
Yeah, I'm fine with the dart throw, but I'm probably not the one throwing the dart. I'm a Browns fan. I know you are as well. You follow the Browns closely. David Njoku was a player I was super excited about when they drafted. It just hasn't worked. And now I'm very excited about David Njoku finding a new team. because what we saw yesterday is well within his capabilities athletically.
Yeah, totally.
So
I think that's the most frustrating thing as a Browns fan and an Njoku fan. It's like, he can do this.
Why haven't they been using him like this his entire career with the Browns? But yeah, it's been long enough that I don't think suddenly after one game they're going to be like, oh, we can use David Njoku like this. I think we're going to continue seeing the tight end roulette. There's going to be some Harrison Bryant weeks, some Austin Hooper weeks, some David Njoku weeks, and more weeks than not, it's going to be you shouldn't have started any of these guys weeks because, like you said, this offense runs through Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. That's how this offense wants to operate. The other thing I will say about Njoku, not to throw fire on him, I do love Njoku. The Chargers, if they're going to be beat through the air, it is through the tight end. It is not through the wide receivers. They are very, very good against the wide receivers so far this season. So the Browns attacked them where the Browns attacked them where they knew they were weak in the receiving game, and they had to be passing the ball this game. So the game script definitely contributed to Njoku's success, but I love him from a talent perspective. And if this is dynasty, I'm trying to acquire all of the David Njoku for whenever he lands on a new team that hopefully uses him properly.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so who is your logger?
My logger is a quarterback. And usually I am not one to say that you should go spend any sort of fab on a quarterback, but I think there's some extenuating circumstances that give me confidence to add this guy, and that is New Orleans Saints quarterback Jameis Winston. He has been really, really odd this year so far. Started out week 1 with a game less than 200 passing yards, about 5 passing touchdowns. So everyone was freaking out like, oh, the old Jameis is back. But then you look at the box score and it's like, no, he's not. That was a 180-yard passing game. That's not the old Jameis.
Weird.
This last week, though, he got close to the 300-yard passing that we're used to from Jameis, had a big game, and Taysom Hill went down, injured in that game. So that takes away some of the concern about work going away from Jameis Winston. But the biggest thing why I would add Taysom Hill, and shout out to Joey Wright for this information, Jameis Winston, for adding Jameis Winston is he's got a great schedule coming up after their bye week. The Seahawks, Buccaneers, Falcons, and Titans are giving up an average of 26.2 fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So Jameis Winston is a guy that you can add now and then use for 4 or 5 weeks after his bye week. And this is the week to add him while he's on bye. Go get him now while it's free instead of whenever everyone's looking for their fill-in quarterback next week. So you don't have to spend much. You can throw $1 down and probably get Jameis Winston this week. But that's a quarterback I think is worth adding.
That is a great call, especially with the aspect that he is on bye this week. So you can't even start him. Yeah. But that stretch that he's got coming up, it'll be worth it going to pick him up this week. Okay, so this actually isn't on the show sheet, but who are some players that you're comfortable dropping these guys for at this point?
Ronald Jones.
Okay.
That was boiling inside of me as a 0 RB drafter this year. I finally dropped Ronald Jones from a lot of my teams today.
What about a Brandon Ayuk?
Man, I would prefer not to. He's the kind of player that has enough talent that I am stashing on the end of my bench. It is solely a talent argument. He hasn't been seeing the work, nothing else. If I can hold on to Brandon Ayuk and see if anything happens because of the talent we know he has, I'm going to. But if you got to drop someone, if you're 1-4, 0-5, you need a win this week, Brandon Ayuk can be dropped for some of these guys.
Okay. Cole Kmet?
Yeah, I'll drop Cole Kmet. Pretty much any tight end outside of the top 6, or the top 6 guys, the big names, I'll drop for whatever reason.
Let me think of one more. You said Ronald Jones. What about Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah, in a 1 QB league, absolutely.
Okay, what about Superflex though?
Yeah, I guess Trey Lance hasn't looked good. That is definitely a tougher question. Trey Lance is not ready to be the starter of that team yet, as much as I desperately want him to be. So there's a very real chance Jimmy G takes over whenever he's back. But
here's another one, and this one is probably too obvious, but Tyson Williams. And I'll expand this actually. Any Baltimore running back.
Man, I if you need to, Tyson Williams is, if you need a running back to start this week, I think there are running backs on the waiver wire that are an upgrade. I would rather start Darrell Williams over Tyson Williams. I would rather start Devontae Booker over Tyson Williams this upcoming week. So if Tyson Williams is the last player on your roster, like the lowest player on your roster, and you need a running back for this week, yeah, I would drop him for those guys. Now, Latavius Murray, I'm probably holding over those guys just because of rest of season value. Even if I might prefer a Booker start this week, Latavius Murray rest of season just has way more value than Booker or Darrell Williams does.
Okay, last one, Houston running backs.
Yeah, I'll drop pretty much all of them. I don't understand why they're not just giving the workload to like David Johnson instead calling it a day, but
yeah,
not too much interest from me there.
Cool. All right, well now it is time for top shelf and flat performances.
Yeehaw!
And I'm really excited. This was a fun week for me because I admittedly have a lot of these guys. So first, it's top shelf QB, and again, as the guest, I'm going to let you lead off here. So who is your top shelf quarterback?
Man, it feels like cheating even saying this, but Lamar Jackson is my top shelf quarterback after that record-setting performance on Monday night. 40-plus passes, above an 85% completion rating, over 400 yards. He is an absolute monster. And the craziest thing is like almost all of it came in the second half. I don't know if you realize this. He had 7.28 fantasy points at halftime and 4 point per. I guess the touchdown doesn't even matter. 7.28 fantasy points at halftime.
No way.
Dude came out and absolutely balled in the second half. He's an unbelievable player, maybe the most fun player to watch in the NFL. And he came out and showed everyone why he should still be considered one of the best. I love the dude, even as a Browns fan. I don't know what else I need to say about Lamar Jackson. If you drafted him a full round after Lamar or Patrick Mahomes, you got yourself a value. It's crazy to say that a quarterback was a value in one QB redraft leagues, but yeah, I really think Lamar Jackson was a value this year.
Yep. All right, so mine is he's honestly battling Baker for my favorite player right now. It's Justin Herbert.
I love Justin Herbert.
26 of 43, 398 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air, 4 carries, 29 yards, and a rushing touchdown. In multiple leagues for me, he scored over 50 points. And it was glorious. Absolutely glorious. So, yeah, I love Herbert. Herbie fully loaded is what I'm calling him, and me and Josh Christensen from the collective. So, yeah. He can make any throw on the field and almost make it just look effortless. And he's so much fun to watch for me.
I was a hater during the draft process for Herbert.
Me too.
Was not a fan of the pick. And then I tell you, I got so much crap on stream because the week that he came in for the injured Tyrod, I came out and not only said I was wrong on him, but I said this is a generational kind of quarterback. And when you say that word, you immediately get everyone jumping down your throat. And rightfully so. It gets thrown around a lot. But you know what? I look back and I don't know that I would edit that statement. This dude is a baller. He is unbelievable.
No, I was completely with you. So I watched the game his senior year when he played Auburn, and I'd seen little clips here and there throughout his career, and to me he didn't have it here from what I'd seen, and from that entire game against Auburn, one of the best defenses in the country that year, he didn't have it here, and then he came in injured for Tyrod and lit it up, and then continued to light it up, and is still lighting it up. And I was like, okay, I'm in. Like, I'm all in right now. So I'm totally with you there.
Yeah. And if you think about it, he did that on the weirdest offseason for rookies ever. He did not get the normal OTAs, training camp, the reps with the team. He came in and did all of that on a abbreviated offseason COVID protocols. There's a reason he's doing even better this year, and it's because he's gotten a real offseason and time with the team. I'm so excited for the future of Justin Herbert. I'm glad I could talk about him the rest of the show.
Me too, but let's not.
You're right.
All right, so now let's move on to our flat QBs. I went Sam Darnold because this is not where he's been all season. He had 177 yards, 1 touchdown through the air, and 3 interceptions, 2 carries for 10 yards, and no rushing touchdowns. He's been a low-key, or even a high-key, if you will, Konami quarterback this year with 5 rushing touchdowns. And this week, I don't know what happened. He just broke. So I don't expect him to be here long, to be honest, just because I think Joe Brady helps him so much, and he's getting Christian McCaffrey back this week. So, or he should be getting McCaffrey back this week. So I foresee Darnold flipping the script and getting back to where, not, I won't say he'll get back to, I think he's been a top 5 quarterback this year in fantasy. I don't know if he'll maintain that, but I think he will be much better than he was this week for the rest
A
of
top
the year.
15 option rest of the year, I
Yeah,
think,
totally.
is very reasonable. And yeah, I agree with you there. This team misses Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
They are absolutely missing him. I expect things to turn around rather quickly when he comes back.
Yep, 100%. All right, who is your flat quarterback?
Mine, I brought up for a similar reason. I don't think he's stuck here. I think he's got some brighter days ahead, and that is Derek Carr, who started the season lighting the league on fire, but put up a pretty disappointing this week against the Bears. He had 206 yards and an interception, 0 touchdowns. And you know what? I'm going to do it again. Shout out to Joey Wright. He just put out some awesome data as well, but he pointed out that the rest of the season, the Raiders have the best schedule against opposing quarterbacks. So as far as schedule goes for opposing quarterbacks, Derek Carr is number 1 rest of season based on the data we have so far. And he's shown he can do it against the right matchups. And he's got the most of those out of any quarterback. He's got the receiving weapons, Darren Waller, Henry Ruggs, Bryan Edwards. I'm excited about Derek Carr rest of the season, but man, this week did he poop the bed, and last week too. It's been 2 pretty bad weeks for Derek Carr in a row.
Yes,
he's down here falling flat 2 weeks, but I'm instilling confidence in him. That's why I put him on here. I want people to know you can pick him up and you can play him rest of the season.
Awesome. All right, top shelf running back time. And mine, when I saw yours on the show sheet, because it was there first, I had to go with the stack with my quarterback, and that's Austin Eckler. 17 carries, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 5 catches on 5 targets for 53 yards, and a reception touchdown. So this dude balled out. And a lot of it came in the second half, if I remember correctly. So much so that he broke away for a long run and ran out of bounds, or slid out of bounds, or slid right inbounds, to keep the clock running so the Browns wouldn't have time to go back down and score. And the Browns ended up dragging him in for another rushing touchdown.
My girlfriend was so confused. She was like, wait, did they just carry him into the end zone? I was like, yes, they did, because they need those 30 seconds.
Yes.
Like exactly. they need those.
Yep. So people not drafting him this year or any year really just befuddles me. He never really falls to me to where I would like to take him, because I would like to take him at a value. And I don't get that often. So I love Eckler. He's awesome. So
yeah, Eckler's one of my favorite running backs in the NFL. He was a top 5 guy for me going into the season, and I love seeing him ball out like this. And honestly, part of the reason he was a top 5 guy is Justin Herbert, the guy we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to see them together on the field, fully healthy for a year. My guy though is a rookie I was super excited about last year, and now he's no longer a rookie. Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Indianapolis Colts. And this is the kind of performance that we've been wanting to see from him. Not that he's been bad all season. He's had a couple good games, 15 points, 19 points around there. But this week he finally came out and gave you over 30 points in PPR leagues. He had 15 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown, 4 targets, 3 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. And he showed you some of that just like electric ultimate athlete playmaking ability that we were promised from Jonathan Taylor. And man, this dude needs a workload like Derrick Henry. If there's any other running back in the NFL that needs to get that kind of treatment right now, it is Jonathan Taylor, especially on this offense. I brought him up primarily just to say, like, you know what? They found some success with him this week. Maybe this will show them this is the way their offense needs to run going forward through Jonathan Taylor. But definitely a top shelf performance from him, and hopefully the first of many for the rest of the season.
Yeah, you would think. I just don't. I've never understood the usage of Jonathan Taylor.
Doesn't make sense to me.
So, all right, let's hop into flat running backs, and I'm gonna let you go first, just because I love the fact that this guy's here for like I don't know, the 5th week in a row.
God. Yeah, I don't even know how much I need to say about this guy. Miles Sanders, yet again, disappointing. And honestly, this is less of a Miles Sanders call and more of a what the hell are you doing with your running backs, Philadelphia Eagles? Like, come on. Miles Sanders is a very talented running back. He's great in the receiving game, and you're just going to keep on giving him like the scraps as far as your offensive workload goes. Miles Sanders needs to be more involved in this offense. They did get him a bit more involved, but it's just not enough. There are so many backs I would start over him right now, and it hurts.
Would you start Kenny Gainwell over him?
No, I'm not starting Gainwell over him right now. But they're in the same tier as far as like starting running backs that you can put into your lineup. I'm starting Gainwell in a couple leagues. The difference is I drafted Gainwell as a flyer, and I'm pleasantly surprised with what he's doing so far.
Yeah.
I drafted Miles Sanders to be my RB1 in some leagues, and it is going very poorly. So, yeah, I shouldn't have done that either. But Miles Sanders is a flat RB. But it is no Miles, if you're watching or listening, this is no indictment on you. Talk to your coaches and tell them to give you the ball more, man.
Love that. All right, so mine is similar to our flat QBs. It's someone that I don't anticipate being here for very long just because of the way he's been playing so far this year. And that's Chase Edmonds. 6 carries, 15 yards, 3 catches on 4 targets for 19 yards. I read on Sleeper he was also nursing a shoulder injury, so I don't foresee him being here very long. He's just got to find the end zone too. Like Connor has been vulturing the touchdowns,
It's gonna keep happening.
and getting the goal line work, but Chase has been getting the reception work. So I think that's why Chase still has a ton of value. He just hasn't been getting. He just didn't get it as much this game. So I'm not worried about Edmonds. I think he'll bounce back. Maybe not this week because they play Cleveland, and Cleveland's defense is nasty. So, all right, top shelf receivers.
Here we go.
Okay, I'm going to go first because this guy is on one of my favorite teams and honestly one of my favorite players to watch. It's Devontae Adams. 11 catches, 16 targets, 206 yards, and 1 touchdown. I think he's the best receiver in the league. I'm not afraid to say that. I don't think it's a bold take. He's got the volume. He's got the athleticism to score touchdowns. He's a extremely good route runner, and he's got one of the better QBs. That right there, like that with his talent that he's got, which I know some of that was talent, but like the other aspects of his talent combined with all that make him the best receiver in the league to me, and it's not even a question.
Yeah, he's definitely in the conversation. I think there's a couple guys you could talk. I don't know who I would say is the best receiver in the league, but Devontae Adams would definitely be in that conversation with the likes of DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, those kinds of players. But definitely. I completely agree with you there. I love Devontae Adams. As a guy who drafted a lot of 0 RB this year, I have a lot of Devontae Adams on my team.
Well, then you were really happy yesterday.
Oh, I was so happy. I have like my most rostered players this season are Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown. This was a very good week wide receiver wise for a lot of my teams. It was a fun time for me.
Yeah, it was.
But right. I'm not talking about any of those guys. I'm talking about a guy I pretty much faded in the offseason. Did not draft a lot of. I've got him in one league where a co-manager really liked this guy, so we drafted him. And that is Marquise Brown for the Baltimore Ravens.
Nice.
I really underestimated what this passing game was going to look like in Baltimore this year. I know they talked about relying a little bit more on the pass, changing the offense up a little bit, not being just a straight run team. And you know what? They stuck to their word. They are passing the ball a lot more than they have in years past, and Marquise Brown has been a direct beneficiary of that. But last night, 10 targets, 9 receptions, 125 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's got to be a top shelf wide receiver performance paired up there with the quarterback I put. It was an unreal game from Marquise Brown paired with Lamar out there.
Absolutely. And I saw a stat today. I think it was Troy King that tweeted it out that in his last 10 or 11 games, he has one game under, I want to say 10 fantasy points. And in that span has 12 touchdowns or something like that.
Insane.
It's ridiculous. Like it's stupid. And I think the cool thing is, I don't know if cool is the right word, but we're going with it, that even when Rashad Bateman comes back, I think Brown still has a very distinct role and very easy path to fantasy points.
Oh yeah, I think I'm sorry, I'm a Rashad Bateman fan, but the
Me
idea
too.
that a rookie who hasn't seen a single snap is going to come in and just completely detract from the fantasy value of someone who has been an absolute stud this year and has that kind of talent is a little bit silly to me. Like, I think they can both find success in this offense, and I think
Absolutely.
Marquise Brown is going to continue to be the dominant one on that team over Rashad Bateman.
No, I completely agree with you. I
Yeah.
actually think, and I've seen this on Twitter too, I think Bateman coming back hurts Sammy Watkins and potentially Mark Andrews
Yeah.
more than it hurts Brown. I think
He's got his role defined. He's got his role clearly defined in that offense, and it's not what they're
yeah,
going to bring Rashad Bateman in to do.
exactly. And I think Bateman actually helps Brown because it's going to open him up more because Bateman's going to be working in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
So, all right, time for flat receivers. And this one was harder for me to find somebody. So I'm going to go with Robbie Anderson. He's had a very disappointing year. And the interesting part about this game was 2 catches, 7 targets, and only 30 yards. He got the volume, and he hasn't been getting the volume this year. So I'm very shocked to see that he wasn't able to convert that into more yards and more fantasy points. Any additional thoughts on Robbie?
No, no, you pretty much said it. That's how I feel about Robbie Anderson as well, Shane. Completely agree.
So who's your flat receiver?
My flat wide receiver is Adam Touchdown Thielen, or I guess right now Adam No Touchdown Thielen. If he doesn't score a touchdown, you're not going to be happy, and he's going to be in this flat wide receiver category, is what it looks like. So that's where we are with Adam Thielen currently. Justin Jefferson is the consistent receiver to have in that offense.
Nope.
Adam Thielen is still a guy you can probably start, but you need a touchdown from him.
Yep. Totally
And
agree.
he didn't get one, so he was flat this week.
Totally agree. All right, let's move on to top shelf tight ends. And you mentioned this guy earlier for me, so I'm going to go ahead and knock it out of the park here. Dawson Knox is my tight end top shelf. 117 yards, 3 catches, 4 targets, and another touchdown. I believe that's 6 touchdowns in 5 games. Dude is balling out. And if you punted on tight end and drafted him late, you are reaping the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say Dawson Knox detractor even through the first couple of weeks of success that this guy had. I was like, he's not going to keep it up. He's not going to keep it up. But you know what? The touchdowns he has had, I'm not sure he can keep up that pace, but he is a heavily involved piece of this offense. He's not just going to disappear. This isn't a flash in the pan through 5 weeks. This is a guy you can start every single week going forward.
It's started to become consistent, and I love it because I loved Knox, loved the talent, loved the athleticism. He just hadn't produced on it. And they talked about it last night now 2 nights ago in the game. The drops are gone with him, and that was apparently a thing, and now he's doing really, really well. So, yeah, love Dawson Knox here. Who is – actually, before we go to yours, we have a question in the chat. Bars in the tuck, left field question of the week. My league, full PPR, gives points for return yards. Should I pick up Jamal Agnew since he's getting targets now, plus the Jags D to double up if he gets a return touchdown? Jags are playing who this week?
I cannot remember off the top of my head. Oh, they're going to London, right?
Yeah, they're going to London.
Jaguars are playing against the Dolphins in London. That's right.
Okay.
Somehow
Yeah,
we're sending an even worse game
that.
to London.
I would absolutely do that. I just picked him up in my home dynasty league, and he got I want to say 6 or 7 targets last week.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, give us your thoughts on Jamal on the question.
Yeah, if you're getting points for return yards, this is a guy you can definitely add and plug in if you need to. He's not a high priority target for me, but if you've got that slot that needs to be filled, this is a guy that definitely has high upside. in a return yards league. He's a high upside play.
Yeah, and he got 8 targets last week, so I'm
Yeah.
absolutely comfortable grabbing him and the Jags D if he does double up, because London games are typically kind of ugly. So could be a defensive showdown, could be something like a special teams touchdown that tips the cap towards the Jags for their first win or gives them momentum. So yeah, I'm totally cool with that.
I will say I don't expect 8 targets again.
No.
That was an anomaly. I don't think this is one of those situations where all of a sudden he's heavily involved. I think I expect Visca to be more involved going forward. That was a weird game, but he's worth a pickup in a league with return yards.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, so now we will hit back on. We were on top shelf tight ends, right? You didn't do yours.
Yes, we were.
Cool. Hit it.
My top shelf tight end, thank God, I'm so happy I can say this today, is Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. He's been getting the targets. He's been involved in the offense. It was just a waiting game. It seemed like every single week we were just sitting there crossing our fingers like, is this the week? Is this the week? Is this the week? And people are going to point to Calvin Ridley being out as the reason it happened, but I will not accept that explanation. I think it was just coming. It wasn't like he was suddenly more involved in the offense because Calvin Ridley was out. He was getting heavily targeted through the first 4 weeks leading up to
100%.
this. It just came together this week. I'm not saying this is going to happen every week, but you're going to continue getting weeks like this out of Kyle Pitts. And Sunday was it was so good to see. Like for all the people that bought into Kyle Pitts, loved him. Sunday must have felt so good.
Yeah, absolutely. In one of my favorite leagues, it's the Multiverse League. And I have one side of the multiverse, which is Multiverse 4, that is stacked, but I didn't have a tight end in that league. So I traded Nick Chubb from the Multiverse 3 league to get Kyle Pitts in the Multiverse 4 league. So now, like, it was almost like I was just taking the last Infinity Stone and just plugging it right in. Because now I've got Mahomes, Kamara, Najee, Tyreek, Devontae, Keenan Allen, Pitts. I started Hunter Henry this week. Who was my other flex?
Mike Williams.
No, it wasn't Tyler Boyd because I just traded him. I've got Mooney on that team, and then Aaron Rodgers is my super flex.
That's a solid team.
Yeah, that's disgusting. I scored 218 points this week. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
So, all right, let's move on to flat tight ends, and you go first.
Okay, mine is. I guess the expectations weren't super high, but I had the idea that he would be a startable guy the whole season. But I'm going to go with Jared Cook, and the reason I'm putting him up there is because in a game that was a high-scoring, absolute shootout, he got like 2 receptions in this game and a similar amount of targets to Donald Parham Jr. It looks like Parham is catching up to him as far as target share goes for tight ends in that offense. So you can't start Jared Cook going forward if that's what they're going to do, which is disappointing. He's been a guy that has been startable for the last couple seasons, has been a late round guy that you could grab and be pretty consistent for your team, but that's not the case anymore. I am disappointed with what's going on with Jared Cook, but that's the reality of the situation. He's no longer a tight end starter for fantasy.
Yeah, he's also been really good at catching touchdowns. And if he doesn't, he's like Thielen. If he doesn't catch a touchdown, you're kind of hurting if you start him.
Well, they got a different big-bodied touchdown guy on that team that they've been utilizing a lot this year, Mike Williams.
Yeah,
but so it's just not Jared Cook's year.
Yep. So my flat tight end, and this is the second time he's been on here, so it's the second time that I'm almost in tears, and it's TJ Hawkinson. 2 catches, 3 targets, 22 yards, 5 fantasy points in PPR. I'm gonna make this public announcement. People are gonna think I'm crazy, but I'm gonna take the blame for listening to Justin Wright. So in a group chat, I asked Justin, who do I start my super flex position? Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield? And he told me Goff. So I started Goff that week, and I've started Goff since then. And since then, Goff has sucked and Hawkinson has sucked. So this week, I'm starting Baker, and I'm hoping that the juju will be pulled out and Goff and Hawk will be back to the moon like they were.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I hate that he's in the stinkers, but I talked about it earlier whenever you brought up Amon-Ra. I've got faith in him going forward, so I'm not
Yeah,
too worried about it.
I do too. I think if they're smart and they want to eventually at least win one game, they'll get him involved in the offense.
Absolutely.
Or they'll say, or they'll look to Jared Goff and be like, if you don't throw him the ball, we're shipping you back to LA and you can
And
sit
there's no
on
job
their
waiting for
bench
you.
because they paid us to take you.
Absolutely.
All right. So that wraps up the top shelf and flat performances of the week. And now that leads us into our final round, and that is the Fantasy Beer Exchange.
Yeah.
So this is a new segment that we started 2 weeks ago. Last week was the first time that I had somebody to do it with me. So Simon, you are the second voyage of this journey, and
Let's do it.
we've kind of talked a little bit about some potential trade targets throughout the show. So we're gonna start. You know, start low or high.
Let's start high.
Okay. Then I'll go first. I'm going to go buy high. And this one, I don't know if you can technically consider it a buy high.
Let's buy higher than last week, at least.
Yeah, it's definitely buy higher than last week. And I think it's buy higher probably than the rest of this season or the previous weeks of this season. And it's Chase Claypool. So Juju's out. Ben actually decided to air the ball out. And Claypool and Deontay both looked really good and scored touchdowns. I was the two receivers that I wanted on that team all preseason were Deontay because of volume and Chase because of touchdown upside. Now that Juju's out of the picture, I feel like this just skyrockets their value. He's someone that I'd be willing to buy right now, especially if you need upside on a team because he's going to provide that for you.
Yeah. And he got more targets than Deontay Johnson this week too. He was heavily involved in this offense with Juju out of the game.
And
But
that's the frustrating part as a Claypool manager is you're gonna get weeks like that where he's just like the focal point of the offense and gets all the volume, scores a touchdown or two sometimes, and it's like, why do they not do this more often? And they run the offense through Deontay, and I'm not saying Deontay's not talented. He is. I mean, he's a much better route runner, I think, than Claypool. Speed wise, I'd still probably take Claypool, but it's just, I don't know. It's hard to figure out why they would go away from Claypool when they seem to have more success with him than when not.
yeah, and just to hit on the buy high aspect of this, I actually think you're still buying low on Claypool for his rest of season output. It's just higher than it has been rest of the season up till now. Like, yes,
Totally.
you are paying more to trade for Claypool right now than you would have any of the other weeks, but his finish is going to be significantly higher than where he's ranked right now in fantasy scoring through 5 weeks.
Yep. I totally agree with that. And it helps I'm a Notre Dame fan. So there's probably a
Craig.
little bit of reason. Hey Craig, good to see you, buddy. That means he probably just got off his live show. All right, so Simon, who is your buy high candidate?
My buy high candidate, we've talked about Justin Herbert and the Chargers a little bit here, and it is a wide receiver for the Chargers, Keenan Allen. We all know Mike Williams has been the surprise superstar of this offense so far, but in all reality, whenever you look at how the offense is broken down, it's a 1A, 1B situation for these two guys. Mike Williams
100%.
is just getting the touchdowns right now. Mike Williams is just getting the touchdowns. So I'll take the player that's a little bit less expensive to acquire, but you're still going to have to pay up for a receiver like Keenan Allen. He's a top 20 PPR wide receiver right now, even with Mike Williams balling the way he is. So you're going to have to pay up, but there will be plenty of games going forward where Keenan Allen is better than Mike Williams. Touchdowns are not a sticky stat. If I had to pick one of these two players rest of season, I'm still going Keenan Allen, not Mike Williams. I think that's a perfect buy high candidate right now is Keenan Allen, who's kind of being viewed as the 1B in a 1A, 1B scenario when I think he is the 1A. And
I definitely think he's still the 1A. Because he like he's one of those guys that is also a technical route runner and always seems to be open.
Yeah.
So for me, there's three guys really that are like that in the league. It's Devontae Adams, who we talked about already, Stephon Diggs, and Keenan Allen.
And please, for the love of God, when Jerry Jeudy gets healthy, let us put him in this conversation next year.
I absolutely love
please,
Jerry.
please.
So the next tier of guys for me would probably be like Jerry Jeudy, Deontay Johnson, and that's probably it for right now.
Yeah.
But there's probably some other guys that are fighting to get in there that are technical route runners that are gonna get. DJ Moore is probably another one that's probably either in between those two tiers or right there.
Where's that jersey? It's somewhere back there. There's a DJ Moore jersey back there somewhere.
Love it. Craig says Keenan is just forever undervalued by the general fantasy football world. Totally agree. Well, and shoot, now it's probably 4 or 5 years ago. The first 3 years of his career, or 3 out of 4, it felt like he was injury prone. And that's why I kind of backed off of him and wouldn't draft him when I was way younger in my fantasy career. And then he finally had that 1 year and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to do it. And I kept drafting him and it's paid off.
I forget who said it, but you're injury prone until you're not. And that's true for Keenan Allen. Happened with Frank Gore early in his career, but you are injury prone until you're not. And Keenan Allen is showing he's not.
100%. All right, so now it's time for buy lows. And since you have already talked about my buy low as a buy low, I'm going to talk about my buy low. And how many times can I say buy low? So my buy low is TJ Hawkinson. Like we've discussed throughout this episode, Hawk is uber talented. He's only 23. He's in year 3 of his career. He's shown up until this point everything that you want to see in a young tight end that's budding towards stardom at the tight end position. He's just had 3 bad weeks in a row. And again, I'm taking the blame for that, for starting Jared Goff in a super flex position when I should have started Baker. It's my fault.
Yep.
Okay, my fault. But I still think the talent is clearly there. The volume will return. I have no doubts about that, because now they have 3 options, maybe 4 if you count Jamal Williams, on where that offense can really and truly go through. It's DeAndre Swift is I'll say 1A. TJ Hawkinson should be 1B. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 2, and then Jamal Williams is 3 or 4, however you want to count it. I don't see any other person on that team that deserves consistent volume. What that means to me is Hawk's stock will rise back to where it was and where it should be anytime now.
He's too talented not to be a buy low after the weeks he's had recently. He's way too talented not to be a buy low. 100% agree with you.
Yeah. And the good news for me is I already have him on a ton of my rosters, so I don't have to buy him low. So let me ask you this, Simon, since you've brought it up a lot, what would you be willing to offer a Hawkinson manager to go and acquire him?
That's a tricky one on the spot. I'm not to go acquire Hawkinson. That positional advantage at tight end can be huge. I'm trying to think guys that have overperformed recently that I'm willing to send over for TJ Hawkinson. Or some of those mid-tier running backs. You're probably looking at sending a mid-tier running back, if you can afford to do so, over to this. I don't know if you could do Mike Davis plus, maybe Mike Davis plus another player to a running back needy team for TJ Hawkinson.
What about Myles Gaskin and let's say Myles Gaskin and Jalen Waddle?
Yeah, I'll send that for TJ Hawkinson.
Here's the question: do you think it would get accepted?
It depends on the other team's situation, right?
Yeah.
Needs 100%. You might have to throw a tight end in there. You might have to go Myles Gaskin plus a Noah Fant maybe to get a TJ Hawkinson. And that's something I'd be willing to do. Yeah, I'd be willing to do that in a
heartbeat. All right, cool. All right, so who's your buy low?
My buy low, and I'm not sure if you're going to agree with this. I
love
know
this.
it is
I love
Javonte
it.
Williams for the Denver Broncos, and this comes a little bit with a rest of season prediction for the Broncos as well. The Broncos have had a fairly hot start to the season compared to what I think their actual finish is going to be. I don't think this is a playoff team, and I think as soon as they realize they're not a playoff team, as soon as they're out of contention, the workload split that we've seen between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams is going to go all the rookies' way. We've seen it with the Jets and Michael Carter, right? As they've realized, oh, shoot, we
Thank
suck.
God.
They're giving the work to Michael Carter. I think we're going to have a similar situation with the Broncos as they realize, oh, wait, we are not a playoff team. They've got a tough schedule coming up. 2 matchups against the Chargers, 2 late season matchups against the Chiefs. And that's important that it's late season, because if you don't think the Chiefs are going to pull their stuff together by December, I got bad news for you. They're going to figure it out. This is a tough division, even though it's been a rough start for them. The Broncos are not a playoff team, and they're going to want to get their rookie involved once they're out of contention. So Javonte Williams is startable right now in your flex, and he's only going to get more work. He's electric out on that field when they put the ball in his hands. He's got that playmaking ability that they just lack.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I absolutely loved this when I saw it on the show sheet. I've been saying it all off season. Javonte Williams is talented.
So many places.
Javonte Williams is talented. Melvin Gordon was going to be a pain in the butt for at least 4 to 6 weeks. We're going into week 6. I've been pretty damn spot on with that. I seriously think about week 8, week 9, we're going to see just like you said, a severe shift from the 50-50 split to it being a Javonte Williams backfield.
Yep, I agree with you. And I guess there is a world where that doesn't happen, where they keep going with the 50-50 split. But even then, you're not going to have to really pay up to acquire Javonte Williams right now with that split in a lot of leagues. And even if the split continues, he's flexible. He's a flex-worthy option each and every week at his current value. But I view his value skyrocketing as the season goes on.
Nope, I totally agree with you. So I love that pick. All right, so now it's time to review some listener trades, and these are actually from 2 collective members. So the first trade is from the one, the only Carbon Fox _FF. He's not gone wrong, people. He's back. So he sent a 2022 first and received T. Higgins, a 2022 third and fourth round pick back. The context for this was he needed a solid flex option because he just lost Monty to injury. And that's David Montgomery for people that don't know his nickname. Simon, I've got my grade for this on the show sheet, but before I give it, I want to know what you think about this trade.
I am a huge T. Higgins fan. I really like the guy as a player. I absolutely love him as a wide receiver, and I try to take my Clemson bias out of things, but the dude's an awesome wide receiver, and I was excited when he got drafted by the Bengals.
Agree.
Well, excited for him, not as excited as a Browns fan that I'd be going up against them divisionally a couple times a year, but I've liked seeing him succeed out there. And you know what? I think this is a fair trade. I'm probably giving it I'm probably giving it a B+. I think you could have gotten a second in there with the first as well after this last game, instead of a third and a fourth. But it's a B+ for me. I definitely think you're on the winning side of that, grabbing T. Higgins in the picks.
Gotcha. So I actually give this an A+, because I feel like you could trade. I would happily trade a first straight up for T. Higgins right now. So yeah, it's a third and a fourth round pick, but getting something on top of that for a young stud wide receiver who is in a offense with a young stud quarterback and another, like, we're talking about Keenan Allen and Mike Williams being 1A and 1B right now. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are going to be 1A and 1B for a long time.
Yeah.
A long time. And so I'd be more than happy to send a first to get T. Higgins. The fact that he got a couple extra picks thrown on top of it, I absolutely love this trade. It's an A+ for me.
So I do want to clarify what I said a little bit there. The only reason it's not higher for me is because I think the current perception of T. Higgins with Jamar Chase's breakout so far this season is not as the 1B. I think his perception is as the 2 right now, which is incorrect if you go and look at how this offense has been targeting him. So I think you could have gotten a little bit more plus based on public perception, not his real value. But I completely agree with you there. This is a 1A, 1B situation. My grading was just solely from a value perspective right now with how he's being viewed.
And that totally makes sense with that context too. I didn't remove and I'm not a Clemson fan, but I love T. Higgins, so I didn't remove that love for T. Higgins out of my bias when evaluating this. So that's probably why I gave it an A+ versus a B+ or A-. All right, and then our last topic is another trade, and this was also sent in by fellow collective founder Nick Sarnelli. So he sent Mark Andrews a 2022 second and a 2022 third, or 2023 second, sorry, and a half PPR 1 QB dynasty for Devontae Smith. So I left that off the show sheet, sorry. So he got Devontae Smith and sent Mark Andrews and a 2022 second and a 2023 second for Devontae Smith. I gave this a C+. I was given some hell in the league chat because I am in this league. The guy that got Andrews needed a tight end. Nick had 2 top 5 tight ends. I can't remember who his other tight end was. So he had 2 guys that were clear options here that he could get rid of. But the positional value that I feel like Mark Andrews gives you at a tight end, and he was plugging him in as a flex play. Even though it's not tight end premium, that's still that's a solid flex play. And so I didn't love this trade for Nick. I feel like he could have gotten more back for Andrews with the 2 seconds. And I like Devontae Smith too, but that offense worries me rest of season to where, and we don't know what it's going to look like next season. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Even though I love Jalen Hurts, we don't know what it's going to look like. So I feel like Nick could have gotten back a little more than just Devontae Smith for this because of the positional advantage Andrews can and will give you. So I gave it a C+. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, this is an overpay in my eyes for Devonta Smith. I love Devonta Smith. He has been fun to watch so far this year. I think the future is bright for that dude, but I completely agree with you. You could have gotten a little bit more back for Andrews plus those picks. It's a fine trade. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a bad move on his part. In the long run, this could very easily work out on his side, especially if you're a huge Devonta Smith guy. But just from a value perspective, I think he could have gotten a lot more from what he was giving up.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. And that's kind of what was the discussion that followed in the league chat was like, it was an interesting trade. It was a fair trade. And it just kind of depends on how you feel about Smith and his long-term value. I think it can only go up, to be honest, but I still think, like you said, right now he could have gotten more back, and that's why I gave it a C+. So, all right, Simon, that wraps up this episode of Fantasy Nightcap Live. So thanks for hopping on with me, dude. It was a ton of fun, as per usual, when you and I get together. So before we go, where can people find you and follow you, and what are you working on right now?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at FYF Simon. As Shane said, I'm the co-founder of Front Yard Fantasy. We go live with the fantasy football game show 5 days a week at 3 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel and our Twitch channels, Front Yard Fantasy. Then we are live on Fridays at 6 p.m. playing some more games on the FanDuel YouTube and Twitches. And then on Sunday night at 7 p.m., we are live on the FanDuel YouTube and Twitch for the Sunday night recap. So make sure you guys tune in to us over there. It's a lot of fun. We're playing a lot of games, then doing some good fantasy talking on Sundays.
Yeah, the guys, if you have not watched a Front Yard Fantasy show ever, you're missing out. Find a way to get
it's in the middle of the day. I know it's a weird
Eastern
time,
off
that's when we go.
Just once, and you'll be hooked. It's so much fun. They're a great group of guys. The content is fun. It's educational too, from a fantasy perspective. They know their stuff. So I absolutely love the Front Yard Fantasy guys. Simon, thanks again for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you follow the Fantasy Nightcap on Twitter at Fantasy Nightcap. Follow the Fantasy Football Collective at FF_collective. That's KOLLECTIV. And you can find me on Twitter at FFShaneB. This is the Fantasy Nightcap, where we serve you fantasy advice straight, no chaser. Cheers.